History is marked by great figures who have left an undeniable legacy. Among the many names that could be mentioned, three stand out as true pillars of history: Jesus, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. Their contributions transcended time and geographic boundaries, affecting millions of lives worldwide. Reflecting on the deeds of these men helps us see universal values like compassion, justice, and peace. They didn't change the world alone, but their actions sparked movements so powerful that they continue to impact generations. This video is about them, but it's not a comparison, as it would be unfair to weigh their achievements against each other. Each was important in their own way, and our intention here is simply to highlight the lessons their lives have left us. Perhaps you're facing challenges in your journey, trying to find your purpose or seeking ways to make a difference. What these three men did can serve as a source of inspiration. Let's start with Jesus, a figure who shaped Western civilization and whose impact is immeasurable. He was the founder of one of the world's largest religions, Christianity, which currently has billions of followers. However, his greatness goes beyond that. Jesus was a master of compassion and love for one's neighbor. He preached that everyone should love one another as themselves, a concept that, simple as it may seem, carries immense depth. In an era marked by violence and oppression, he dared to speak of forgiveness, turning the other cheek, and treating the marginalized with dignity. His message has crossed centuries, bringing comfort, hope, and for many, a sense of purpose in life. If we look at the Gospels, we see stories of people who found redemption and healing, not just physical, but spiritual, through his words. And even though, during his lifetime, he was not recognized by many as the Messiah his followers believed him to be, his legacy grew after his death. His teachings, like the Sermon on the Mount, are considered by many philosophers and thinkers to be one of the most revolutionary texts on ethics and morality ever written. Jesus not only preached love, he lived it, even in his most difficult moments. His death on the cross is a symbol of the ultimate sacrifice, and his resurrection, for Christians, represents victory over death and evil. The religion he founded has shaped belief systems, influenced art, politics, and human behavior for 2 millennia. His message of salvation and hope continues to be preached worldwide, inspiring millions to live a life of faith and service to others. Now, if we shift our gaze to another time and place, we arrive in India and the figure of Mahatma Gandhi. He was the leader who managed to free his country from British rule, an extraordinary feat, but what makes Gandhi so admirable is not just the result he achieved, but the method he chose to fight. In a world accustomed to violence as a tool of power, Gandhi followed the path of nonviolence, a concept he called Satyagraha, or the force of truth. He believed that peaceful resistance was the only way to fight oppression without compromising moral values. His journey was full of difficulties. Gandhi was imprisoned several times, humiliated, and even assaulted, but he never abandoned his principles. One of his most remarkable achievements was the Salt March, a 400-kilometer walk he led to protest the British monopoly on salt, an essential commodity for the Indian people. This act of civil disobedience inspired thousands to join the independence movement. More than freeing India from colonial control, Gandhi planted the seed of an ethical revolution, showing that the struggle for justice can, and should, be done with respect for human dignity. His example influenced not only the liberation movements of other countries, but also leaders who came after, such as Martin Luther King Jr., whom we will see later. Gandhi was a man of faith, a man who deeply believed in the power of truth and goodness. His philosophy of life inspired an entire nation to believe that, through peace, they could achieve freedom. Moving on to the 20th century, in the United States, we find Martin Luther King Jr., a Baptist pastor and activist who became the face of the American civil rights movement. Like Gandhi, King believed in the power of nonviolence. Inspired by the teachings of Jesus and the methods of Gandhi, King led a series of campaigns and peaceful marches to fight against racial segregation and for equal rights. His greatest achievement was the March on Washington in 1963, where he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. On that day, before a crowd of over 250,000 people, He spoke of his dream of a world where people would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. This speech resonated so deeply in American society that it became a symbol of the struggle for equality. But King's struggle was not easy. He faced death threats, imprisonment, and a deeply divided society. Despite this, he remained steadfast in his ideals, believing that love and justice would prevail. King not only fought for the rights of Black people, but also for the rights of the poor and against war. His vision was of a just and equitable society for all. His legacy is so powerful that, to this day, he is celebrated in the United States with a national holiday, and his words still echo in the struggles for civil rights around the world. And here we are, faced with three giants of history, who in different times and places, with different beliefs and missions, left an indelible mark on the world. Jesus, Gandhi, and King teach us that true greatness lies not in brute force or imposed power, but in the power of compassion, justice, and love. The legacy of Jesus, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King goes far beyond their times and historical contexts. They planted seeds that continue to grow, inspiring people of all nations and religions to seek a more just, peaceful, and loving world. The greatness of these men does not lie only in their historical deeds or the milestones they achieved, but in the way they managed to touch people's hearts, challenging them to be better, to fight for something greater than themselves. This is something that transcends time and space. And perhaps that is exactly what attracts us so much to their stories, the ability of each of them to show us that, with courage, faith, and a strong sense of purpose, we too can make a difference in the world. The impact of Jesus on humanity is something difficult to measure, both in terms of scale and depth. His words, preserved in the Gospels, continue to be read and reflected upon by billions of people around the world. But Jesus was not just a religious leader. For many, he was also a revolutionary, a visionary who challenged the power structures of the time, proposing a new way of living based on love and compassion. He not only spoke about loving one's neighbor, but showed it through his actions. He cared for the poor, the sick, the outcasts of society, offering them something much more valuable than money or power, dignity and hope. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Jesus is the message that we are all worthy of love and forgiveness, regardless of our failures. This is a powerful message that continues to transform lives and guide those who seek to live more fully and meaningfully. Christianity has become a global force, spreading not only faith, but also a series of values and principles that have shaped Western thought and culture in general. Charitable institutions, hospitals, social justice movements, and even governance structures in many countries have been influenced by Christ's teachings. It is impossible to think of the modern world without considering the direct or indirect influence that Christianity has had on it. Gandhi, in his struggle for India's independence, also left a legacy of transformation that went beyond the borders of his country. His philosophy of nonviolence and peaceful resistance not only freed India from colonial rule, but also became a model for resistance movements worldwide. Gandhi did not see political struggle as something separate from moral values. For him, the means by which one fights is as important as the final goal. In a world accustomed to violence as a natural response to conflicts, Gandhi showed that true strength lies in the ability to resist oppression without resorting to violence. He believed that by remaining faithful to the principles of truth and nonviolence, it was possible to change the oppressor's conscience. And indeed, that is what happened. India's independence was a milestone not only for the country, but for all humanity. Gandhi became a symbol of the possibility of achieving profound and lasting changes without the use of weapons, inspiring figures like Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. His life teaches us that, no matter how great the challenges, dignity and peace can be powerful weapons against injustice. And this message remains as relevant today as it was decades ago. Martin Luther King, in turn, became the symbol of the civil rights struggle in the United States, but his influence extended far beyond his country's borders. He understood that the fight against racial discrimination was part of a larger struggle for the dignity and equality of all human beings. King highlighted the need to challenge the status quo, to not accept injustices as inevitable, and to believe that with patience, persistence, and an unwavering commitment, we can achieve significant change.